Evening, everyone, and welcome to our virtual meeting of the Brampton Community Safety Chat that they would like to add. Can I please have somebody move a motion to approve the agenda?
I will.
Approved, Marcia Glasgow.
Okay, I heard an I will and approve. Just enter your name in the chat box, but I will go with Marcia because I don't know who I will was. I'm sorry. We have a motion moved by Marcia Glasgow to approve the agenda. Instead of seeking a recorded vote for the committee, may I ask if there's anyone opposed to this motion? Hello? Okay, otherwise your vote is in the affirmative. Since there are no objections, that motion carries. We are now at item 3, declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Does any member have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter considered on today's agenda? I do not see anyone. The clerk will so note for the meeting minutes. Now we're on to the next item of public business on today's agenda, which is previous minutes. We have the minutes from the last committee meeting held on December 9th before us today. They were received and approved by council in early January. Do any members have any questions or comments regarding the minutes? If so, please use the chat function to add your name. I do not see anyone. Can I have a member from the floor to approve the minutes? Andrew DeGroot. I have a motion and moved by Andrew DeGroot to approve the minutes as published. If there is anyone opposed to this motion, otherwise your vote will count in the affirmative. I see no objection, so that motion carries. Next up is item 5, which is delegations. So we do have a delegation by David Powell and Andrea Kelly, just around the corner, Red Jacks. So just around the corner is going to start their delegation. And Paul Vicente moves to give the delegation additional time. Thank you. And all those in favor for additional time? I see no objections. That is moved. I would like to hand the floor over now to David Powell and Andrea Kelly. Thank you.
Madam Chair, sorry, it's Peter Fay. I just want to verify. So Andrea, one of the presenters, I'm going to unmute right now. And Andrea, just before you begin, I see that there's 3 additional callers that have called in. I just need to verify if one of those is David, because I haven't seen, oh, David has joined. Okay. I'm just, if you can bear with me for a second, I just want to verify the identity of the 3 callers if they're members of the committee. So I'm going to unmute the 3 callers, and I'm going to ask you to please identify yourself for the purpose of the meeting.
Sandra Solonic from the Region Appeal.
Thank you, Sandra.
Okay, Susie Godfrey, Downtown Brampton BIA.
Thank you, Susie. The last person that called in, who just joined a moment ago.
Shabazz Altaf, member.
Okay, thank you, Shabazz. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll, David, you can unmute your mic, and Andrea, your mic is unmuted as well.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, we
Hello?
can see you.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm calling through my phone here, so I'm having issues with my audio from mine as well. So, okay, so good evening, Chair, Councillor Williams and fellow councillors and committee members. On behalf of Just Around the Corner, Councillor Reid wants to thank you for your time today. I'm David Powell, and I'm a community worker and resident in Brampton, and this is my colleague.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Kelly. I'm also a community member and work within the region.
And we represent an organization called Just Around the Corner, which is more commonly known to young people as JAG. We are here to share with you about our proposal for street-based youth work project in our community, and we are requesting your support to help us implement our program. For over 15 years, I've had the privilege to serve in youth in the community, both here in Canada and in England. Some of my most meaningful conversations with youth about their lives have been in youth centres, counselling rooms, and school halls, and in the community, and in front of the convenience store, essentially where young people just hang out. Our young people in our region are facing a sea of challenges at this time. We have COVID-19 that's been really lingering and impacting their lives and their education and their mental health. They want to stay in and they want to go out. There is youth violence, which is taking many of our youth needlessly, impacting families. So the questions we raise is, how do we support and fill in the gaps in the services for our youth during this time? Why are our youth turning to violence as their first course of action? And are we really spending enough time to understand why? Jack has been delivering a model of youth work called Detached Youth for 22 years, which brings social and personal education right to the feet of young people. We believe that through Detached Youth work, we can assist in supporting our youth and bridging the gap. So with these questions in mind, we would like to talk about the following three areas: what we know about youth crime, who is Jack and what is Detached Youth work, and how we can support youth.
So what do we know? Well, according to what you see here, to the police reports from 2018 to 2019, we see that youth crime has decreased somewhat from 12 years to 17 years old. But notwithstanding, Statistics Canada this year is pointing out that youth are 1/4 of Canada's population at risk for poor mental health prior to and now with the COVID-19 pandemic. As I've heard, even with the Kids Helpline in the last few months, they have received an increase in calls. In addition to this point is a 2018 report from the Ontario Ministry of Children's Community Social Services, reports on root causes to youth violence. These causes are often reflected as I complete intake and assessments in my work at the Brampton Courthouse as a youth mental health court worker. Some of these root causes are things such as poverty, issues in the education system, having no sense of hope. These are not singular in nature, but often have intersections. So we at JAG plan to address this by aligning ourselves to Pillar 3 of the Ontario strategy to address root causes, build neighborhood capacity, and empower focus. Essentially, what we are trying to do is to implement programs to be more proactive rather than to be reactive, and have them have youth enter into the youth justice system as I see them on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. So, who is Jack? Well, here are some of our highlights. Organization started in 1998 and established by founders Mr. Sam and Mrs. Yvonne Milligan in England. And they've been working with youth for over 25 years. They simply saw a need in the community where youth were hanging out in the streets, dealing with some of the root causes that Andrew has just talked about earlier, substance abuse, family issues, and when to just really engage them. Sam and Yvonne rallied a variety of local residents, created Jack teams to support these vulnerable youth. The local council recognized the positive impact Jack was having on the young people in the community and created a partnership with Jack to fund the program. Jack maintained 6 teams, having partnerships and service levels agreements with 3 local councils, and worked collaboratively with the Thames Valley Police. As a result of doing Jack work, it was recommended to go into schools by the Police Community Youth Liaison Officer. To this day, we continue to work in schools, offering one-to-one supports and group mentoring on emotional literacy. And also in 2010, Jack was awarded the Queen's Award for voluntary service. So our mission statement is to walk alongside young people and families, showing love and acceptance according to Christian principles, encouraging brave and positive choices. We believe that when working with vulnerable youth, it's not a sprint, but it's a marathon. So in terms of our detached sessions in the UK, we have held 1,915 sessions during 2017 and 2019, which enabled us to connect with 3,603 youth utilizing 40 volunteers. As we roll out our program, we believe that with the difference in demographics, we can build more Jack teams across the region, delivering more sessions, aiming to reach up to 6,000 youth per year. So what do we want to do now? Well, we're proposing to commence a detached youth work project and bring Jack teams to go out into the community, starting right here in Brampton and reaching out to surrounding areas. We believe that this program is one of a kind in our city, connecting with youth at ground level and partnering with community liaison officer. We want to bring local members of our community together to improve the well-being of our youth and to support them in feeling safe in our community. So what is detached youth work? Well, it denotes that workers are detached from a service within the four walls of an establishment. Detached workers aim to connect with youth who choose not to attach themselves to services. It's meeting youth on their own turf, and it enables them to feel that they're stakeholders in the community. It aims to build effective and meaningful relationships with the youth through regular contact, mutual trust and respect, to support and challenge young people, attitudes and actions towards a variety of issues to enable youth to take more control of their lives. On the next screen, there's a picture of an actual live detached session. I think it's, yeah, if we keep going. There we go. And that's what a live session would really look like. That's the UK director. He's out there and he's been working with these youth for a while now. And, you know, it's just having some time, checking in with youth, connecting with them, and, you know, on their terms, if anything. So in terms of budget, Jack has gained support through local donations and partners with 3 of its local community councils to do their work with young people in the community. We will need staff to coordinate the program, manage Jack teams and volunteers, administration, and perform research and build those multi-sector partners. We're requesting 2 years of funding for $55,000 each year to roll out our program. So what does the program design look like? Well, detached youth workers identify hotspots where young people congregate. We visit the hotspots to study the area, we establish the presence, identify ourselves with young people and local businesses, form relationships with target audience. It takes time and commitment and continuity to build trust with young people and for them to build trust with us. Sustainability, as we move forward. Our work will always allow us to gather data and program planning. We'll be tracking our numbers of sessions, contacts, referrals, and so we can kind of measure our outcomes. Based on data, an application to Ontario Trillium Foundation will be explored. We'll be looking to our community to support us in volunteerism. Our timeline. Well, what we will be looking at is providing 2 to 3 Jack teams targeting youth aged 16 to 24. And each team will consist of 3 to 5 volunteers on foot in rotation basis, delivering 1 session per week on a Friday or a Saturday for 1 to 2 hours. Jack is flexible in its service and it can happen anywhere at any time during the year. And then we've got our partnership opportunities that we're looking at. There are a list of agencies that we're looking to kind of connect with. We've already connected with our local police community liaison officer, and where there are no school resource officers in our schools at this time, this is a gap that we hope to fill and to engage our students in a proactive way. Building trusting relationships with youth are key so young people can feel they can be referred for support. So planning for the future. Receiving funding would enable us to plan to grow our volunteer base and to get 50 more volunteers. We're currently working with 3 churches, and we have volunteers ready to create these teams. Our goal is to have a Jack team in all the wards in Brampton to support our young people. So just in conclusion, Jack has been doing detached work for over 22 years in the UK, and we believe that to be one of the most purest forms of youth work, and it can be of benefit to young people in our communities right here in the region of Peel. We're requesting 2 years of funding, and we are hoping that you will endorse our program. It is our aim to measure our outcomes between January 2021 to December 2021, enabling us to propel forward for funding in 2022 to continue supporting our youth. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea and David, for that presentation. Red Jacks, it's pretty an interesting, unique concept because it's detached youth. It's like a bridging service, I find, for a bridging service that is needed because it's hard to get youth to go to the organizations, but your volunteers would be encouraging our young people to access supports. So thank you so much. Do any members have any questions or comments regarding the presentation? If so, please write your name in the chat box where it says all panelists, and then I can go through the names on the speakers list.
Madam Chair, it's Councillor Paleshi, if you can put me on the list.
Sure, Councillor Paleshi, you were the first one to identify themselves as a speaker, so please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your delegation. I guess I have a number of questions. I think I'm going to refer this back to staff. But before I do that, can I just ask if Red Jacks, is it Red Jacks?
Yep. Yes.
If they were a witness to, if they were out in the community and they were a witness to an altercation, what's the training and what would the members of Red Jacks do during that altercation if the altercation was physical?
Can you say that?
He's asking if there was an altercation or a physical altercation while Red Jacks were out volunteering, what would they do? How would they handle a situation like that?
All right. So there's a number of factors in play, really. It really is based on our relationships with the youth, in terms of how long we've been kind of connecting with them. We would then look to speak to authorities if we had to in terms of that situation, and so we would do that, and we would try to look at the situation and try to de-escalate if we can, or if there was a situation. But that would really depend on the circumstances of, if who we knew, what was the situation, and then be able to kind of determine what we would need to do at that point. But that's what we would have to do at that situation.
Thank you. And I think where I'm trying to get to and understand is, and I know Red Jacks, and I'm a strong believer in having our own internal security dress more plain clothes when they're out in the community and get to know people, have discussions, and don't be that security. Don't be a police officer. Be kind of a friend to the public, a mentor, if you will. And that's kind of what I'm trying to understand with Red Jacks. If they're out in the community and trying to be a mentor to our youth, are they going to be perceived as kind of the security or the arm's length of the law, where if there is an altercation, is the first thing that they do, call the cops, take down descriptions, and start that process, depending on the altercation. If somebody's, seriously hurt, then obviously, all witnesses would hopefully be there. But I guess what I'm trying to say is if there's, a little bit of a scuffle, nobody's really hurt, what is their role and how do they keep that connection and that trust with the youth to say, hey, we're here, we're with you, we've been there, we get it. We're just trying to help. We're just, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what it's about. If you can talk a little bit about that.
So if Andrea or David, if you can expand on how you can maintain relationships with young people if there is an altercation and trust may be broken as a result.
Do you want to speak to your? Well, I mean, do you want to speak to your experiences in the UK and how you dealt with that, and then I can address it from the standpoint of what I do daily.
Right. So, obviously the police have their role in the community, and we have our relationships with the youth, and so we have to be as transparent as possible in terms of being with youth. And so we'll talk it through with the youth and say, look, you know, this is the situation. You know, do you want us to come with you? Do we? And we will just walk them through it. You know, and just be very transparent about it and in relation to the situation.
And if I can add to that, I think the idea here too is that a lot of who I see already volunteering for JAG are those who have some experience in working with youth and like to volunteer and find working with youth their passion. And as for me, in my experience, it really is engaging in having that relationship, that builds that relationship to really have those honest conversations, even about their troubling situation. A lot of times, it is that growing process for you, and having that extra ear to hear them, to talk them down, to just say that you're understood, and to even refer, because a lot of times it is really about extenuating circumstances like family issues, school issues, and things like that. And oftentimes they don't get to hear somebody talking about that until they get to my level where I'm working with them in the court and then providing those services for them at that time. What we want to do is to really be able to engage them on the ground to hit those issues before they escalate. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And at the beginning of your answer, you had talked about, or I think it was you that had talked about social workers. And are members of JAX, are they mental health professionals or social workers?
So yeah, I can answer a little bit, and then again, Dave can pick up from there. So a lot of them absolutely do have some connection to that. A lot of them are, again, just, neighborhood individuals who want to participate. And part of our training is to really to ensure that we do that screening, and also to be able to train them on those conversations, right? So it's really just that honest conversation on a daily basis. So it's a combination. Would you like to add to that, Dave?
Yeah. And in terms of that, it's, volunteers that want to come on with us. Yeah, they come from various backgrounds, various disciplines. Yes, and some specifically in mental health, some in psychotherapy, and so hopefully what we're able to do is, as Andrew was talking about, in terms of our training our volunteers and making sure that that they're able to kind of go out and do the work as well. And making sure that they are trained in all the things that we need them to be trained in, mental health first aid, just general first aid, and kind of looking at, as Andrew was saying, about just general communication and how we talk with individuals and young people.
Councillor Palesi, do you have any further questions?
Is there a list being started?
I have Gurpreet next. And Marcia afterwards.
I'll be really quick, and I'll hold my referral so that members get a chance to speak. I did want to touch a little bit on the finance side of things, and trying to get an idea of what, preliminary, what it would cost to run a program for a ward.
For
I guess
one
it all
ward.
depends, but well, yeah. So I can just multiply that by 10 if they just give you the one ward. But I guess it all kind of depends on the ward, the need, and everything like that. But I just trying to get some kind of understanding of is there volunteers? Is there a program lead that would run it for each ward, each area, or that's kind of where I'm trying to get at is what is there an ask in the delegation? I
Yes.
didn't see one.
Yes, Councillor Paletti, there is an ask, and there is a slide that has a budget outline, how much it would cost per year. I think to the clerk, if you could please pull it up. And it says, so for 1 year, one full-time coordinator, 38,000, a part-time administrator, 11,000, uniforms and personal protective equipment is 1,750, IT or phones, 1,250, printing, stationery, training, 1,000, insurance, 1,500. So a total of 55,000 to run this program for 1 year, with the goal to get up to, what was it, 50 volunteers? Is that correct? Yes, 50 volunteers according to David.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question was more along the lines of a program if it's just starting out in a couple wards here and there, or one ward, as opposed to citywide. What are we looking at per ward? Is kind of what I was trying to get to, and I think that may be a difficult question to answer. But the numbers that I see they don't paint the perfect picture for me yet, and I guess that's the reason why I would like to refer this back to staff to fully understand. So I'm happy to yield to other members, and then you can take my referral after everybody's spoken.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paletti. So, members, there is a current yield to a referral motion to staff, and so I will go to Gurpreet to ask your questions. Gurpreet, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a bunch of questions. I think it's a wonderful organization, first of all, and it's great to see that it's had a lot of success in the UK. My hesitation is, so this organization in Brampton, as of yet, has only been in existence since April. Am I correct?
Since 2019.
2019? Okay, great. So
Yeah.
I guess what I'd be curious to know in terms of the finances is kind of just a breakdown of how much that runs you on a month-to-month basis, just so I'm sure the councillors will probably want to better understand what the costs are associated with what you've been able to do up until now. But over and above that, I guess going back to the training, Councillor Paletti actually brought up a lot of valid points, but I guess what I'm wondering is, when it comes to training the volunteers that come in, who may range from potential youths that are just interested in getting involved and doing something that might make a difference in another youth's life, or diverse professionals. What does the training entail when they're putting themselves out there in these hot spots? I'd just be curious to know how they're going to tackle these issues in that 1 hour period of time, and then that also is in different hotspots. So like, how do you maintain that connection with them, or that communication?
With the different teams, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, we will all have cell phones as we're out, and so in terms of the teams, so let's say, for example, there are two people out. Let's say a pair. There's two pairs who are out in different areas, and so what we will do is we will check in when we start, and we'll check out when towards the end of the session. Obviously, if there's any issues in between, then we'll have somebody who's actually on call who'll be able to kind of connect if there is an issue at the time and we need support. And usually, if there are situations, then obviously there are services that we can call in, right? It depending on what the situation is. I think in terms of you saying about the budget, were you saying you wanted to understand what it was going to be on a monthly basis from the budget that you see on the screen?
Yeah, so I guess I would just want to better understand what the breakdown of the budget is on potentially a month-to-month basis, or even up until now, potentially what the cost has been for organizing something like this.
Okay, so in terms of just having, we don't have any specific teams out now, and then this is why we're kind of going forward. So it's going to be very difficult to be able to say to you, well, okay, it's going to be based on what you're seeing on the screen now in terms of our budget. That will be what it will be. That's what it will be on a monthly basis. Obviously, there may be other things that may come up. But obviously, I can't say to exactly what those figures would be.
Okay, so
as we're moving forward.
Sorry to interrupt. So there aren't any active teams out right now. Haven't been as of yet since 2019, correct?
No, there's no active teams out in the community. No.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So have you been able to reach out to any of the community centers? I know there's a bunch of them that are listed, proposed partnerships. Has anyone else been receptive to the idea?
Right. So basically, what happens is obviously we have to do a lot of reconnaissance, right, in terms of the areas that we go into, and so the process is it's almost like you're going out and you're just you're seeing and observing what's happening, and so you're not interacting with any young people, or you're just kind of monitoring and seeing what's happening, and so we don't have any teams out at this point.
Okay, got it.
However,
okay. So there's no direct communication with youth as of yet. And so far you've just been observing certain hotspots that you've identified. Am I correct?
That's right.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But in addition to that, if I may add, Gurpreet, that we have connected with some, for example, we've spoken with the Peel Regional Police Liaison. We have some connections there, and we've also looked into some other spiritual organizations, like Christian organizations, and our plan is to do a lot more once we get the go-ahead. And as of date, there are some other, there are people right now ready to go and are very receptive to the project.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Again, I think it's a great idea. I mean, we have a subcommittee here that deals with youth violence, and so it's definitely something that I'm interested in. I guess I'd be more concerned about the safety of the volunteers and essentially the training that they're going to be provided when they're being put in these hot spots to then, you know, gather information or be youth mentors. I know I've spoken closely with the head organizer of PCHS here in Brampton, and I know that he's had a difficult time often connecting with youth and I guess maintaining that type of relationship when they're, a little bit disconnected or detached. So I'm just wondering, how you maintain, because there hasn't actually been any practice yet. You haven't actually been out there and we haven't actually experimented with this. I guess it'd be difficult to say, but that's all I had to ask today. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurpreet. Next up is Marcia. Is Marcia able to come through?
Madam Chair, she is. Marcia, can you just unmute your microphone, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Marcia.
I have my headphones in because sometimes it's a little bit clearer. So good evening, everyone. Andrea and David, thank you for your presentation. I also have a few questions for you based on your presentation and your ask. So my first question, it's referring to one of the underlying issues that are driving youth violence. What past activities have you implemented to address poverty? Because poverty is such an overarching construct. So what past activities have you implemented to address poverty, addressing it short term and long term? So that's my first question for you, for either David or Andrea. Hello.
So in terms of poverty, it's going to be a case of we have to develop the relationships with young people, and that's where we have to start first. And then this work is really done around strategic dialogue, and so it will be a case of going out and having those conversations. And we want it to be youth led, and so if we go out and we have those conversations, and the youth wants to talk about those issues, and what's causing that for them, then we can have those conversations. So that's where the educational piece comes in relation to that.
Okay, thank you. My next question, and maybe Andrea, you can speak to this because you did refer that you do work in the courthouses in Brampton. And I think this might be similar to Councillor Paleshi's question about the detached workers. So Andrea and David, you may be familiar with youth outreach workers or enhanced youth outreach workers, which are EOWs or clinical youth outreach workers. How does that job, duty or role differ than the detached youth? And you briefly spoke about the youth not necessarily being clinicians or having clinical background or aspirations, but can you expand a little bit more on how you see the detached youth role different than enhanced youth outreach workers or clinical youth outreach workers?
Mm-hmm. Well, the only difference is that they work from a building, right?
Who does?
So the youth outreach workers. Does that make sense?
I believe the question was directed to, was it directed to Andrea?
Yeah, because she had mentioned that she works in the courthouse, and she was familiar.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I say this cautiously just simply because I do know some YOW workers, and we often work hand in hand in a lot of the work we do in the courthouse. So I would see this detached youth work, essentially, it has its specialties in the sense that you're going out on the ground and you're really looking in on those different places in the community that these youth are, right? And our mandate is very cool because we don't have to, you don't have to really get in there and say, okay, this needs to be changed and that needs to be changed. It's very youth-centered, very youth-led. And it's just fluid. It's a part of the community. You're part of the community. And the thing about it is, it's not a 9 to 5. It's fluid. It's very fluid. I would see that as a little bit different. Obviously, youth outreach workers also have mandates. So that would be how I would say, and maybe David could add to it. But I do know some of the workers within the courts, and I do see that they do a lot of work. But also, I've also heard the difficulties that they do have too in reaching the region. They're very limited in staff, and having to. One of my friends, for example, has 100 and something youth just to tackle. So when I look at it from that perspective, I can see where these detachment groups can actually really support and align. You're going in during the nighttime on Friday night, Saturday night, in many various parts of the community, able to kind of work hand in hand with these services to support the youth. So it's just kind of like a unique way of walking hand in hand,
Mm-hmm.
supporting youth, right?
Yeah, okay. So I know the clinical piece is important because, and I think there was concern about the volunteers and what their lived experience or expertise that they will be bringing to this detached youth role. But I think the lived experience and having varied experience is important in terms of making that connection that David spoke about. So my last question, and I'm being mindful of time, you mentioned hotspots, and I'm asking for you to clarify this because you had identified hotspots in your presentation. First question, what is your criteria for categorizing and targeting the community centers as hotspots? And that being said, because you're talking about going to where the young people are in need and also looking at upstream approaches, what is your flexibility in expanding your definition of hotspots and expanding your reach? So including a list of different places and spaces in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Is that to both of us or Andrew or me?
Whoever, sorry, Andrea or David.
Oh, okay. So in terms of the hotspots, I mean, for us, it's where we see young people congregate, and that could be in a variety of different places. And so once we identify that, then it's as I said, it's a case of doing reconnaissance and kind of getting to know the area and getting to understand the issues of the area. But it's really about seeing where young people are and where they're congregated. And it might not be, I mean, somebody else's definition of a hotspot could be, of there's some activity going on there, and that may not be a hotspot for us. It's just a case of, okay, this is where young people are at, and so we're going to connect there, and that's a hotspot for young people.
And I think it's important that you make that distinction in the definition of a hotspot. It doesn't mean that it's a high crime area or a high risk area. It's just a place where young people congregate. So there may not be, the risk for volunteers or workers may be low. So I just wanted to just understand about what your criteria was in terms of calling it a hotspot. And then if there was an opportunity to expand your reach from community centers. And then just very quickly, youth, you're categorizing youth as what age and what are you focusing on in terms of it? And that's my last question.
Mm-hmm.
So we're focusing on 16 to 24.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Next up, I have Andrew.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. A few quick questions. First, you said you've been in Brampton since about April last year. Is that correct?
In April last year.
Okay. What budget did you have for 2019 and thus far for 2020?
So we incorporated as a not-for-profit in December.
Okay.
Of 2019.
So you worked last year with no budget then, I guess, pre-incorporation. Okay. And we're 9 months into this year. Any budget yet for this year?
No, we're still we just have donations and that's it in terms of our budget.
Okay. So you're asking for your $55,000 a year. Is that the entirety of your budget for moving forward, or is that a portion of your total?
That's entirety at this point, yes. But we'll be, as we said in the presentation, that we are looking at other areas for funding pots. So.
Okay, so you haven't gone to the region or to the province or other funding sources looking for funding. Is that correct?
Did you say family sources? Did you say?
You haven't gone to the region appeal for funding, or the province for funding? You know,
No.
you're just coming to Brampton for a full funding here.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Next question. You mentioned you've worked with a number of Christian churches thus far. Is that the intent of the focus of the organization, or will you be, looking at broad faith groups?
Broad.
Yeah. So on our presentation, we did put a list of partners that we're looking to approach, and we're looking at a variety of agencies to come and that we can partner with. I think, we always say that, as long as people are sympathetic to, in terms of our principles, that we don't have any issues. We will work with anybody.
Okay. Have you gone to the Region of Peel? Have you approached them yet with this?
The Region of Peel, no.
No. Have you approached the City of Brampton yet? Like, have you gone to council or to any staff members, or is this the first interaction with the city?
This is our first interaction with the city.
Okay. Okay. Well, based on that, I was going to move for a motion to postpone this until our subcommittees and come back with our recommendations. So we as a committee understand our priorities and where this fits within the priorities. But I think I would support Councillor Plessy's motion to refer this to staff for further. So if Councillor Plessy is going to put forward that motion, I'll support that. Otherwise, I'd like to put up a postponement motion.
Thank you, Andrew. I have Alana up next on the list.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for coming in and presenting to us. I'm just curious a little bit about getting into the details. I think, Gurpreet was trying to get into this a little bit about kind of like this line item stuff in this budget. What do you foresee the full-time coordinator and then kind of the administrator's duties? What are they going to be doing in terms of pushing your programs forward here?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of our coordinators, they will be coordinating the teams as we create those JAC teams. That role will be to organize when the sessions will be, also helping out with training if necessary. And that will be the role of the coordinator. There'll be maybe some other bits of administration and data that they may need to do as well. And to actually maybe be running a team as well. So that would be the role of the coordinator. And then in terms of administration and just gathering our data and gathering our information for when sessions are held, information in terms of when we connect with young people, what type of conversations are happening, what referrals are being made, and gathering all that information.
Okay, and can you maybe just walk me through a little bit about how all this stuff happens? So you find these hot spots where our youth are hanging out, or perhaps you get a referral about to bring people together and have these listening sessions. How does one of these listening sessions work, and what are kind of the next steps after that?
So a team leader would go out and they see young people who are congregating. Part of the role is you allow for this for the session to be youth led, and so sometimes when we approach young people, they may not want you in their space, and so we have to respect that, and then we just kind of move on and we move on to wherever young people may be at. So that's generally the course of detached youth work. It's the flexibility is going out, looking and kind of seeing where young people are gathering, and approaching. And hopefully, after a while, what I've seen in my experience is sometimes, just meeting people for the first time is quite cold. And so what happens is, as you keep going into those areas and they keep seeing you and you build a presence there, I've found that, then young people do tend to want to have a conversation, because they're now kind of curious. Why you keep, why are you coming? Why are you coming into our area? And so, and then that's when conversations actually start.
And then what's kind of the next step to that? You've built these relationships. Obviously, it takes time to build up the trust and to get people to want to chat, to trust you enough to have those interactions. But once you've built those relationships and you've got that trust, and you're starting to build up that rapport, what happens next with these listening sessions? What is there any kind of like other programming, or I'm just trying to kind of get a sense of what happens after. Obviously that piece about chatting with youth and letting them have a voice and talking about their their issues, their challenges, their concerns. Like, is there connectivity after, with connecting them with other organizations, or is there other programming that you're kind of as maybe a phase 2 to this project that you would kind of see coming forth in the future? I'm just trying to get a sense of kind of after that point, and allowing kids to have themselves be heard. Kind of what happens after.
Right. So, as I said, in terms of when you are working with young people out on the streets, and as I said, in my experience, it's been a case of if there are some issues and they do want to be referred, let's say, for example, they have anxiety and they say, look, I do want to, I want to get some counseling, and then we can make those referrals. And it's really important that we have those relationships with our partnerships, right? So we can kind of streamline those things. And so that's how we build that. And we're always trying to keep this, as I said, we try to keep it youth-led and try to keep it fluid. We don't want to be dictating because it's on their terms, in terms of, okay, if I do want to get these supports, and they have to be comfortable to want to get those supports. And so that's why we don't really try to dictate too much. We'll suggest, we'll advise, but the ultimate decision is theirs.
And just to add to that, Dave, if I could, a lot of times from my experience when I'm working in the justice system, is unfortunately I'm the first point of contact to any services available. So having the ability to be on the ground, and with that knowledge of the services that are within the Peel region, we are able to, if that youth desires to have services, we'll be able to receive them, rather than going up the trajectory of high risk. Right, you're getting them right where they are.
Okay, thank you for expanding on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alana. I have Ivan, and then Gurpreet. And just a time check, we were around 45 minutes on the delegation. I think we started about 10 after 8. So just if we could be mindful of time. So Ivan and then Gurpreet for a second time. Go ahead, Ivan.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I was wondering, are you aware of any other programs similar that may be running in other cities in the GTA? And I see here that you have protective equipment. If you can clarify what kind of equipment is that? And what knowledge do you have from Brampton? How long have you been living in Brampton? Or are you a resident in Brampton as right now? Thank you.
Okay, so yes, I am a resident of Brampton, and you also asked about PPE as well. And so what we what we plan to do is we plan to have face shields and masks. We will have backpacks, which will have sanitizers and so forth. And we're even thinking in terms of having PPE packs that can be given out as well if necessary. And to be able to have that again, those conversations around that with young people, right? Because everybody's kind of struggling with this, certainly with COVID-19, and so we want to be able to go out and reinforce what public health is saying in terms of the distancing and so forth, and just having those conversations around that. So in terms of PPE, that's what certainly we will have, and gloves as well when we go out.
Ivan, are you finished your questions?
Just I didn't get if there is any similar programs or in other area that you know about it that we can compare how the process since you've been involved with this for a very short period. If there is something else that we can look into in a different city, like in the GTA. Thank you.
So are you
not in the GTA?
Okay, sorry. I was just going to clarify if there are any other programs like this in the GTA.
That you're aware.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, we, as I said, our work is very similar to outreach workers. There's just some subtle differences in terms of our work. But in terms of specifically detached youth work, I've not come across in thinking in the GTA.
Thank you, David. And because Councillor Pileshi is going to be moving for this to refer back to staff, much of these questions will likely be covered in a report that will come back to committee, such as if there are any other comparables and so on and so forth. So much of this information will come back in a report. So Ivan, do you have any other question? Okay, thank you, Ivan. And finally, I have Gurpreet up for the second time. Gurpreet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to keep this short. So I guess I wanted to just circle back to the information that's provided on the What We Know page, the stats. I know that you've stated that from 12 to 17 is really where we're seeing persons charged with crimes. And with committing crimes. And so I'm wondering why the focus then is for youth that are 16 to 24 years old. And also, I guess I wanted to procedurally understand, I know Elena kind of touched base on this as well, but I just wanted to procedurally understand the mental health element of this and like how there's a follow-up to that, and what organizations essentially you'd be teaming up with in Brampton to ensure that the youth that you are in contact with are then getting the help that they need long-term to deal with the mental health element that you've discussed in your slides. So the two questions, just about the age and why you've chosen to target youth that are of a particular age. And then again, the mental health follow-up.
So this question, they could touch on it, but I know this question definitely can be answered in the staff report coming forward.
That's fair.
So, yeah. Sorry, David and Andrew, if you wanted to touch on that very briefly, but we can make sure that question is answered in the staff report.
Right. Okay.
You want to go ahead, Dave?
Yeah. So we're targeting 16 to 24 years because, when we go out and we connect with young people, that's quite a lot of the age that we tend to see in the areas when you kind of when you're looking at some of the areas. And so it's not that we wouldn't speak to anybody who's under those ages, because we definitely would do that. But that's just where our work is kind of targeted to usually when we're doing this work.
And in addition to just the last portion of your question, Gurpreet, there are, as we talked about, I think, there was a mention of a YAO with clinical experience. We often have like the multi-neighborhood services that has that there that I'm aware of. But also in addition to that, there are youth mental health agencies, one of which I do presently work for, and in the neighborhood of all the other alternative services that we do have access to and have knowledge of. Again, being very youth-centered and youth-driven.
Thank you, Andrea and David. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you. Can the chair be heard? So moved, yes. Chair to be heard.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, David and Andrea, for coming forward. You know, as I said earlier, the Red Jacks is very unique. It's really providing that bridge, because right now, you know, both of you are youth workers. I know, David, you work in youth mental health services. Is that correct? Can you just tell me where it is, what background you're coming from, and a little bit about your experience working in the field?
Yeah, so I've been working in the community now for about 20 years. I've done in residential care, and then moved into and kind of worked with young people. I currently represent a regional appeal for the extrajudicial measures program as well in Mississauga. So, and then obviously doing detached youth work here in the UK.
Thank you. And Andrea, you are a youth mental health court worker as well.
That is correct. And sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go on. Go on.
As well as Dave, working within the last at least 15 years, engaged with youth in other areas, addressing violence against women. So working in that area, and youth camps within other organizations that I've had the opportunity to work in.
Great. So you both are coming with quite a wealth of experience and understanding of what youth are faced with. When you were looking at whether to launch Red Jacks in Brampton, what did you do any assessments or ask any questions of young people to kind of gather an idea of if this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, do you want to speak to Andrea?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, we did some questionnaires with some young people. And, you know, we kind of got a feel of some of the issues that they express that they're dealing with. And yeah, and we kind of saw some indicators in terms of, okay, these are some of the issues that they're telling us that they are dealing with, and which is top priority for them. So, yeah, we were able to do some interview or survey some young people.
Andrea, did you want to add to that, or thought I heard you speak?
Oh, it would just be echoing that for sure. And I would say the uniqueness about it is doing it for the first time, detached work, you know, somewhat with gathering information with Dave and the others. Youth are very receptive, very receptive. I did not see a cold shoulder at all. They do want to be heard. That's the kind of excitement that I could feel with this project.
Yeah, and to echo that, you know, studies have shown when youth have develop a relationship with a trusting adult, they're more likely to connect and more likely to make better choices about their future. And definitely there is a gap in Brampton with having that village mentality. And so, you know, I've definitely found this unique. Just a little bit of background. I know I met David at it was a community program, and he told me about Red Jacks, and I highly recommended that he come to the committee to introduce the program, and so that the committee can really kind of give input and get more information. So it's good to actually see you guys here and to continue this conversation. I think it's going to be very interesting for Brampton, because we do need our youth to be more connected. And I really like that you mentioned that you're not limiting to any faith group. You want to connect with everyone and all different faiths. And so I think that is a very unique question, or unique piece to this. How are you going to connect with, I know you have a lot of experience with working with a lot of the organizations in Brampton, but what kind of relationships, and this is my final question, or have you reached out to some of the like PC, Punjabi Community Services, or any of the other organizations, or some of the temples, gurdwaras, to see if they would be interested in volunteers, or is that something you're going to be moving on to next?
Yeah, and that's the way forward in terms of us connecting with those individuals in the community. That's our plan, is to reach out. And I think a lot of the time when you are out and you start just connecting with just local businesses, and you kind of introduce yourself and tell them who you are and what you're doing, and the kind of work gets out, and we're able to kind of connect. So our plan is to, as I said, to develop those partnerships, because it's really important for us to do that, especially for our youth, and kind of building those relationships that they'll be able to access those.
Absolutely, and to add to that is really being mindful that we do have a diverse population within Peel Region. So definitely connecting with the youth in their safe spaces is definitely what we want to align to.
Great, thank you. Sure. So thank you both of you for coming and presenting. I do believe, Councillor Paleshi, I'm going to hand the floor over to you if you would like to properly place your referral motion.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to refer this back to staff. I'm not going to put a timeline on this, given that we have a report coming next week for a particular program. We have a recent council motion that's looking into programs, and also including the upcoming budget. So I guess if there are more questions, or if people walk away from the meeting tonight just to and say, oh shoot, I should have asked that, and don't know if it'll be in the report, I think that an email to maybe Rasmeen Saeed, copy to you, Madam Chair, and maybe the vice Madam Chair, additionally, just for backup, I think would be a good thing, keeping in mind that our community safety program, unfortunately, is a person of one, and although there's a lot that happens to be going on right now in Brampton. So if you can get those questions to those three ladies as soon as possible, I think that would be a benefit to the report coming back after all the other matters have been dealt with. So, Madam Chair, that's my referral.
Great, thank you. So we have a referral motion moved by Councillor Paleshi to receive the delegation and also to refer back to staff. And so members can please refer your questions to Rasmeen Saeed further. If there is anyone opposed to this motion, otherwise your vote will be counted in the affirmative. And there are, Andrew DeGroot is saying he'll second. Thank you, Andrew. I do not see any objections to this motion, so that motion carries. Thank you so much, Andrea and David, for coming back. You will be in contact with Rasmeen Saeed for further direction and further information. Thank you so much again, guys, for coming in.
Thank you, Councillor Shermaine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, now we're going to move on to reports, our subcommittee reports, and the minutes from the Youth Safety Education Subcommittee meeting on November 28th, 2019. Do any members have any questions or comments regarding the presentation or the report? please use the chat function to add your name. I do believe Rasmin Saeed would like to give a short verbal update.
Sorry, Madam.
Hi, sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, the two sets of minutes, 6.1 and 6.2, they need to be received before going on to 6.3 for a verbal update from Rasmin.
Okay, great. Okay, I do see 6. Right. Okay, so can we vote on those together? Vote 6.1 and 6.2, the minutes from the Gangs and Violence Subcommittee meeting on March 12th, and the Youth and Safety Education Committee meeting minutes. I see Paul moving receipt of both those minutes. That's Councillor Vicente. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. I see no objections, so that motion carries for both minutes, 6.1 and 6.2. Sorry, yes, now we're on to 6.3, verbal update from Rasmin Saeed, Advisor of Community Safety, Fire and Emergency Services regarding the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan and response to COVID-19. Welcome, Rasmin. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So through the Chair, I'm just going to give you all a brief update on the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. So as you all know, we continue to participate in the plan development process, and it's led by the region of Peel. In the summer, we were provided with a draft for all partners to review and discuss, and this feedback was gathered and implemented accordingly. So the plan is still to so the plan is actually expected to go to Regional Council on October 22nd, and we're still aiming to for full council adoption before January 21st. I do want to emphasize that this process of actually working on this plan together throughout these past, I think it's been about like a year, like definitely over a year. It's really helped us during the COVID-19 response, because we already had this stable foundation of partnerships and the collaboration between all the partners. So it definitely helped with the response, which I'll get into a little bit later. So what does this mean for us as an advisory committee? So we're going to have the opportunity to actually promote the plan and participate in the various implementation of the subsequent action items that are going to come out from this. So for example, I want to share with you all that, as you all know, this committee brought forward a while ago a discussion item on Focus Toronto, as you recall. And it was a discussion on the situation tables led by the City of Toronto, Toronto Police, and United Way. So through those discussions, we, as an advisory committee, hosted the United Way manager to discuss the benefits of situation tables, and then they were asked to delegate at council. So as a result of that one discussion item, staff received approval to participate in Peel Regional Police's virtual situation tables, and I'm happy to announce that Peel Regional Police has begun discussions with us and other partners on how to enhance their current model and include other service providers. So I want to applaud you all for your efforts that started these conversations and granted us the opportunity to participate and utilize this as an additional tool. And this is actually going to be captured as one of the action items in the implementation plan for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. So similarly with the promotion of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, we're going to have a role to play in spreading the information to our community. So this plan is actually meant to be a community plan, and it's actually really quite exciting because we're all part of building the foundation of something that's long-term with sustainable and realistic solutions. And we're doing this by aligning our work to the Community Safety and Wellbeing framework that we're all familiar with. And, you know, that framework really places an importance on addressing root causes of complex societal challenges. And those are a lot of the discussions that we have during this advisory committee meetings. So that being said, so that's a brief update of what's happening with the plan. But I did want to touch briefly on the COVID-19 response. I know that it's been a very difficult and challenging time for everyone. So we wanted to support our community as a city. And amongst the many efforts of across the corporation, the city decided through the mayor's efforts and everybody else's in terms of to create 4 task forces to support our community. So I'm going to go through a really high level overview, but if you want more information about the task forces or the city's efforts, please visit letsconnect.brampton.ca, and I'll include it in the chat so everyone can have access to that. So the 4 task forces, there was the economic support task force, and that was to support small businesses with understanding the new regulations and helping them with their continuity of operations. There was the youth task force that held virtual sessions to keep young people engaged and gather an understanding of their concerns. And then there was the senior support task force that supported seniors through grocery and medication delivery. And one of the things you realize is that the seniors were one of the most vulnerable amongst our populations because specifically of the social isolation piece. And then there was the social support task force that supported our community by establishing a food and grocery delivery system by partnering with our local food banks. As well, they connected the homeless individuals living in encampments on city property with resources from the city, and specifically worked with Peel Outreach in facilitating the transition of those occupants to housing options. And those are just some of the efforts led by the city. And, we also just... I just want to say that I hope everyone's well, and I hope your families are well. And I know it's been a challenging time, and I'm glad that we're continuing on with our meetings. And if anyone ever needs anything, please do reach out. So thank you. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Rasmin. If anyone has any questions, please use the chat box to identify. Seeing none, could I have a member to move? Councillor Fortini will move the receipt of the presentation. Is there anyone opposed? Otherwise, your vote is counted to the affirmative. There are no objections, so the motion carries. Now we're going on to new business. I will pass it over to Councillor Paleshi for 7.1. Quorum.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question around quorum is, and we have struggled with the size of this committee. Making quorum, it's always a struggle, and we've talked about this before. And I think we've talked even about the quorum issue before as well. But Peter, can you remind us? Is there an opportunity to maintain the number of participants and committee members and lower the quorum overall number, maybe down to possibly 10 by way of a council resolution? So if this committee voted today to request council to make that change, can council do that?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that is an option. Our current procedure for citizen-appointed committees, for which this is one, is quorum is majority, as it is for most committees. However, members of council are not counted for quorum on citizen-based advisory committees. And if there are vacancies as a result of resignations from various committees, then there is some discretion to reduce quorum. But having said all that, with the composition of this committee, I believe there are 22 non-members of council on this committee. So quorum currently is 12, I believe. But having said that, if there have been challenges and this committee wishes to put forward a motion that would have to go to committee of council at a future meeting and then council to reduce quorum to whichever number the committee feels is appropriate. If council adopts that, then that is something that we'll abide by because it's an advisory committee to council.
Okay, and just a follow-up question. I wouldn't want to affect any other committees. Is it possible for council just to make the decision on this committee alone?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, that could happen, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Councillor Pleshy, may I interject
Yes,
for one moment?
for sure.
I'm getting some feedback. It sounds like there's some microphones on and I can't hear over that when Peter's speaking. It kind of mutes over him. So can I ask everybody to please turn their microphones off?
Tammy, do you want Peter to rephrase?
Yes, please, if he doesn't mind, but I can always watch the video if needs be.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll be very brief. So if the councillor wishes to do a specific motion just for this committee to reduce quorum, that could be a proper motion that could be considered by committee of council and council ultimately.
Okay, thanks, Peter. So I think I'm prepared. I don't want this committee to ever have to meet and not with delegations coming before us and never have an opportunity not to listen to them. So I think if we hopefully the magic number is 10. I think that's what I would like to put in the motion. I would be open to any other members that wanted to put forward a different number. I see that there is some speakers, but I would like to move that motion that this committee request the council consider lowering the quorum number down to 10 to ensure that we can have the future meetings and there isn't any further issues. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paleshi. So now there is a motion on the floor to have the quorum number reduced to 10. Any speakers to the motion? I see Councillor Fortini. Please go ahead. You have the floor to speak to the motion.
Thank you, through the chair. That was a good point, Councillor Paleshi. And the worst is when people come over delegation, we don't have quorum. So I'll second that motion if you need a second. One thing, Pierre, do we have any vacancy now on this committee?
Through you, Madam Chair, I do not recall. I know there was a Superintendent Radcliffe Rose from Peel Regional Police, but he's moved on to another division, but he's transferred that responsibility over to another superintendent who couldn't be in attendance tonight. So unless Tammy, you're aware, I'm not aware of any any vacancy issues. Sorry, I should point out. There is no citizen member vacancies. There is a vacancy in terms of the original composition of this committee had a member representing each of the 4 quadrants of council. So Councillor Dillon is no longer on this committee. So theoretically, there is a vacancy there should council wish to appoint a replacement. But that's entirely up to council.
But we don't have quorum. It's more for the people. So do we still have that rule if they miss 3 consecutive meetings, they get thrown out?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is a rule that's followed and provided to the citizen members. We generally try to talk to the member first before we would take an action like that. But there has been a few occasions in the past where we've had to do that with other committees.
Okay, well, I'll support Councillor Paleshi. That was a good thing because, like you said, we do these meetings and then we don't have quorum and everyone takes their time and volunteers and then some people, there's always bad apples, but at the end of the day, but that's a great thing. I will support the 10, even 9 if we have to. At least these committees could go on. And we don't have quorum. We don't count as quorum as councillors, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so Councillor Dillon, he's there, he's not there, or one of us doesn't help the quorum thing. So thank you. I'll support the motion from Councillor Paleshi. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fortini. So next on the list, I have Andrew speaking to the motion to reduce quorum.
Just briefly, and following up on that last question about if people miss multiple meetings and they get dropped, as part of the motion, Peter, can you word it such that if the membership is reduced due to people dropping off, that automatically lowers quorum accordingly?
So that's not necessary through you, Madam Chair, because there already is that provision that exists now that in our citizen appointment procedure that should a number of vacancies occur on a committee, then there's discretion provided to the clerk to adjust the quorum accordingly.
Okay, I just want to make sure that if we drop it to 9 or 10 or whatever the number is, and then 2 or 3 people drop off, we're not in the same position we are right now. That's the only thing I was concerned about. That the 10 can drop respectively. Right, because 10 would be a hard number versus a percentage.
Right. So currently at this time, the numbers do reduce as it is written in the terms of reference. Is that correct, Peter?
Yes. So there's 22 non-councillor members. So let's say 4 of them, for whatever reason, decided not to participate anymore and resigned. Then there is some discretion until we can reappoint citizens to fill those vacancies that quorum can be reduced by the clerk to ensure that the committee can continue to operate.
But if we say we said 10 was the magic number, right, and we drop from 22 to 20, that wouldn't change the 10, and we'd be back to a 50% number, right? That's my only point.
Yeah, that's a possibility. So the suggestion, as you made, may be a percentage as opposed to an absolute number. A percentage becomes a bit of a numbers game, because the percentage, if it's 7.6 is the actual number on a percentage, then we round up to the nearest
a percentage, or if just a provision that if we drop by 2, quorum can drop by 1, or just something like that. Just, I don't care what it is, just a provision such that if the membership drops, we're not stuck with the number 10.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think there's enough discretion in the current procedure that if there were defined vacancies, we could adjust accordingly, even with an adjustment to the quorum from the current 12 to 10. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Next, I have Councillor Fortini and then Councillor Pileshi for a second time.
It's okay. I got my answer. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Fortini. And finally, Councillor Pileshi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, we're covered in the sense that if somebody drops off in quorum, and I understand what the member is speaking to, but what I'd also like to add is that we seriously take a look at members that have missed the three meetings consecutively, and that I don't know if that has to. Peter, can you remind me? Does that have to come to the committee to have them removed, or does that go straight to council?
Through you, Madam Chair, we would bring that to the particular committee for which the member was appointed, and just advise that member X has been absent for 3-4 meetings without contact, without reason, and the recommendation is that that person be removed. It would be approved by that advisory committee and go up the approval ladder through minutes and then get addressed. So.
And then ratified by council.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So I really want us to take a strong look at that. And I know that there's situations where people, have either move or their life pivots a little bit and they're not able to attend anymore. So I think that that being said, I won't add that part to the motion, but having this quorum reduced, I think it's better for all of us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next up, I have Ivan.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Pileshi, for your motion. I think it's a really good motion. And I would like to thank all the councillors for all the good work they've done during COVID-19. That was amazing. Because the circumstances, it looks like we're going to get hit with the second wave. Is there any way that we can consider the frequency of the meeting? I see the next one would be the December 10. If possibly for a short period of time, we can do it like once a month if we have an agenda. If nothing else comes up, then we can just skip it to the next month.
Thank you, Ivan. Ivan, we're speaking to the motion about quorum, but your question right now about frequency of meetings is very valid, but it's unrelated to the motion that we're having right now. And we do know that meetings can be at the call of the chair, and so the next one is December, and we'll be looking to maybe have another one sooner, but we can get to that towards the end for that discussion. Do you have any questions regarding the motion on the floor to reduce quorum?
No, thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So, members of committee, there is a motion on the floor to reduce quorum. Do we have the wording on the screen?
Through you, Madam Chair, we do not, but the motion basically is that council be requested to reduce quorum for the Brampton Community Safety Advisory Committee to 10 to reduce potential quorum issues in the future. And
Okay.
would go through to Committee of Council, I believe not next week, but on September or October
30th. Oh, October 5th.
October 7th, excuse me, and then it would go to council on October 14th.
Okay, because this is that there is no seconder needed for this apparently, or is there a seconder?
There is not, unless somebody wishes to second. There's no need for it.
Okay. I do remember Councillor Fortini speaking highly of this, so maybe he can have him seconded anyway, but there isn't one necessary. If the motion's on the floor, and if anyone is opposed, please identify. I do not see any opposition. That motion carries. Next up again is Councillor Paleshi, 7.2 criminal reference checks.
Madam Chair, I'll try and be a little bit brief with this one as well. Just given the everything that's going on with this committee, I've always felt that some of the matters that we have dealt with or we may deal with in the future bring along a vulnerable component to it. And I would like to just ensure, the situation table currently has police background checks, with our community safety well-being plan coming hopefully for adoption to regional council October 22nd, and then the city of Brampton adopting as along with 30 other outside organizations as well. I think it would be in line and a benefit to the community knowing that the members that sit on our Brampton Community Safety Advisory Committee have their background checks to ensure that the safety aspect of what we deal with on a day-to-day is along the same lines. So, Peter, can you give me any kind of information as to background checks for the Community Safety Advisory Committee currently?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, there is no requirement currently. I'll just, a very short history is previous terms of council for its various citizen advisory committees, there was a mandatory requirement for criminal reference checks or vulnerable sector checks. And what we found, quite frankly, over time is the necessity for those based on the mandates of those respective committees. And in concert with recent changes in recent years by various police forces in terms of the, I would say, a user pay system in terms of requiring individuals to pay to get police reference checks and the basic necessity for them given the mandates of the various committees. This term of council, we did not ask for police reference checks, although on every application for every one of the citizen advisory committees, we did say it may be required. The only committee this term that we have invoked the criminal reference check requirement is the School Traffic Safety Council, given the fact that members are out in and around school children, around schools, but based on the mandates and our understanding of the mandates of all the committees, including this one, we didn't feel that it was necessary to require that. Should council or should committee request that, then that's something we'll pursue.
Okay, thank you, Peter. And just given some of the scope that these committee members have been interacting with in some of the subcommittees as well, I think it's beneficial for this committee. I know that I did a little research and I know that I remember them going to the user pay, which is unfortunate. I would ask that that council support paying for each member to have that background check. I wouldn't expect the members to you know, everybody here is a volunteer. Almost everybody here is a volunteer. So I wouldn't ask that that you come out of pocket on that. I would, but I would ask that that we just we ensure that, you know, this committee, along with school traffic, also continues to have those background checks, just with respect to my earlier comments. So I would like to put that motion forward. I guess, Peter, that would have to go to council to endorse. And then I would also ask that a budget be allocated if our current budget couldn't take that on, then if there is a current budget, ask that council support that as well.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the proposed motion then would be that the clerk be requested to obtain a police reference check for members of the Community Safety Advisory Committee. And to the last point from Councillor Paleshi, the clerk's office, council and committee support budget would assume the cost for this. So there's no additional budget impact.
Okay. Great. So currently the motion is on the floor, and I see Councillor Andrew DeGroot, I see seconding but not speaking, if I'm reading that correctly, but I do see Councillor Fortini up to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Peter, when you volunteer, I think the criminal checks are free. You don't have to pay, because I know I sat on the school safety, and a lot of people do have to get this. And because you're a volunteer and you get the form, there's no budget impact. They actually do it for free. You don't have to pay.
Councillor Fortini, they went to a user pay system a little while ago. I know for a lot of the coaches in Brampton, they had to start paying themselves. So they changed that. Just for clarification, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and I know about the coaches. Yes, you do, because you deal with kids and stuff. But I know, like, I volunteer for Meal on Wheels, and I had to do it. They didn't charge me because it was a volunteer, so long as we give them a letter. So I'm just saying that. So if there's no budget impact, that's fine. If they have to pay, they have to pay. We pay. But as far as I know, a volunteer is free. Coaching is different because you're dealing with girls and kids and young people. So I think they do need it by law. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fortini. Currently, the vulnerable sector police check, you do have to pay a fee for that, so that they can do that review. So if that is going to be a requirement for the vulnerable sector check to be done, then I guess not sure to the clerk if that would have to clarify it in the motion, or just say if there's a budget ask, then that will be covered.
Through you, Madam Chair, there would be no budget impact. The clerk's office budget will absorb that, just as we did for the School Traffic Safety Council citizen appointments.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I see there is no other speakers to this motion.
For you, Madam Chair, sorry, there are. I do see. I think it's Andrew, and then
Andrew.
Paul Hormison as well. So Andrew's first.
Oh, okay. So I don't see Paul, but I do see Andrew wants to speak. I thought it was giving me clarification on the seconding of the motion. And then I do see Councillor Vicente was requesting a recorded vote. So next up is Andrew.
Yeah, hi. My only question or sort of comment to this is, you know, there are a lot of people that are concerned about safety, that volunteer, you know, in organizations that are coming from a place where, you know, they may have bumped into the law in the past. You know, they may have had a drug substance abuse problem, and they're now working with youth to prevent them from that. Or they may have come from a gang and you know, have come out of that and are now working, you know, on the right side of it, trying to get others out of the gangs. So you know, I just see this as potentially limiting the number of people that might be interested in joining this group, you know, in the future. I'm not speaking to anyone in the group. I have no idea, and I frankly don't care. But you know, that's my concern, that this is sort of sending a message that if you've turned your life around and are now working to better the city, which is exactly what we're all trying to do here, is better the city, that you're unwanted. You're not welcome to be part of this this group or the city as a whole. So that would be my concern with supporting this motion, is that message that it delivers to the folks of our city.
Thank you, Andrew, for that comment. Next up is it Paul?
Yep.
Harmon? Okay, because I didn't see you on the list. So,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to, I actually, I agree with Andrew on that. I'm not sure that I would support that motion. Obviously, it's not up to me anyways. It's up to council to determine what the requirements are to sit on this advisory committee. But I think given that they are citizen positions and that they are constituents and representatives of the various constituents, I think I would be very cautious around putting in anything. It's one thing for members who have to go to schools and interact with kids to make sure that they certainly are making sure that they have vulnerable sector searches and so on. But I would question whether or not that's a requirement when ultimately what we are doing is coming to a building and not interacting with anybody. So, I mean, doesn't matter to me. I don't have a a criminal record, but I think the potential limiting factor of sort of making people want to feel engaged and feel as a part, and as Andrew pointed out, there's a number of people who may have had a criminal record who may not be either eligible or have achieved a pardon. If they do have a pardon, it doesn't show up on a criminal record check, but it would on a VSS if you guys are looking at that. So I think really consider what the purpose is, why you need it, and what level you're going for, whether it's just a straight up criminal record check or whether it's a VSS. I certainly don't think that you guys need the second, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Paul. Next, I have Councillor Pileshi and then Councillor Vicente.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I agree with some of the comments that have been made, and I, I'm not looking to remove anybody from the committee that may have, like some of the members have spoke to, something small in nature. What I worry about is we may not have the opportunity to talk about some things that maybe we should be talking about, and furthermore, it's the city of Brampton just went through, if members remember, there was somebody that came out of a center that was living in Brampton not too long ago. So what would it be if for that person to come on the committee, if that person just happened to make the media, that person, as I think everybody knows, jumped ship and started a run, and then was caught doing something, and it would just, I think it would break my heart and everybody else's if we had somebody like that we just didn't know about, come on to this committee, and I would like to talk about and I know that members are talking about other things that are happening in the community that we should be talking about, and I just I still think it's the right thing to do, but my intention is not to grab somebody that may have shoplifted in the past or didn't pay a parking ticket, or I don't even know if that's a criminal offense. I don't know, but that's not my intention, and if somebody was to come back to us to say, yeah, listen, I had a criminal background check, but or if they came to us in the interviews in the beginning and said, but I've changed my life around, and I want to give back and I want to help. We're not trying to stop anybody like that, and it was on the application. So if anybody didn't want to because of that, then it was already there in front of them when everybody filled out the application. So I just think we should be doing this because of this committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pileshi. Last up, I have Councillor Vicente.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Councillor Pelletier, for bringing this forward. Just a thought on this in terms of making it more workable. This is something that could be implemented that kicks in for the next term of council and a new group. We could certainly make that requirement. But I guess another question I have, and I think the clerk would be best able to answer, when the clerk's office does the vetting for folks who sit on the traffic committee, the school traffic committee, and they do those background checks, what would cause a flag and how would the city deal with that flag?
Through you, Madam Chair, very good question. And thankfully, it has never come up to my knowledge in my 13 years here. I can first of all tell you that the results are obviously maintained as confidential. And I'll speak to what we recently did with the School Traffic Safety Council. We used our colleagues in human resources through the firm that they use and to send out a confidential link to the members of the committee. They would then sign in to that third-party vulnerable sector check firm, provide their details, and then the results would be provided back to myself in that case. And thankfully, so far, there hasn't been any flags, so to speak. If there was something that came back, I think the responsibility, quite frankly, would be to have a discussion internally, and then maybe it would be a discussion through you, Madam Chair, possibly with Committee of Council and or the Citizen Appointments Committee that considered the appointments in the first place.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and through you, Madam Chair. This, of course, makes perfect sense when doing that kind of work at the selection process level.
There's an echo. There's an echo.
It would make sense to do that at the start of the term. And if we do it at the middle of the term, if someone is appointed and a problem were discovered, would that decision then have to go to council? And to your point, it's confidentially dealt with?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm supportive of this, and I just wanted those questions, and thank you for clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Vicente. Next, I see Danielle is on the list. Danielle, you have the floor.
Danielle, you can unmute your microphone now. I'll unmute it for you. Go ahead, Danielle.
Hi, okay. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So yeah, I just listening to all of the sides in this discussion, and I'm wondering if a background check, maybe what we should be looking at in terms of a compromise is not necessarily if someone has a criminal record, because if they have a record, they probably have gone through the system and that's been exhausted through a legal process. But maybe if someone has current charges before the courts is what could be considered. And I don't know how to frame that in terms of like a vote, but if there's a concern that, there are folks on the committee that, for whatever reason, like maybe it's reputational harm to the committee, maybe it's, reputational harm to the city, considering if folks have current charges before the courts instead of a criminal record, might be an option.
Thank you, Danielle. So I don't see any. I'm hearing an echo as well now. I'm just hoping everybody is able to go on mute. So Danielle, did you want to make any amendments, or were you asking any questions regarding that piece? I don't hear anything, so I will move on to Vic and then William. So Vic, please go ahead.
I guess just in response to Danielle's last suggestion, the only concern I might have with any outstanding charges is that there's always a presumption of innocence. So I think while I can understand how a criminal record may factor into this, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with historic records necessarily being important. I do see issues with respect to outstanding charges and the presumption where someone is innocent until proven guilty being used against them. That's all I really have to add.
Okay, thank you, Vic. Next up is William.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Bill.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I'm way up north in the forest here, so here I am. I agree with the criminal record check. It's just a basic one. Outstanding will not show up on a criminal record check. That'd be a further check from that. But the basics are is we are getting hot zones. We are getting information from police. We are going on and getting ongoing information, that type of thing. So I don't think a basic criminal check will really be a bad thing for us. I think it could be something moving forward even before we apply. The midway thing, I don't know. That'd be definitely a confidential thing. But I really think that a criminal record check, a basic one, just to cover the basis of the reality of today would actually be a good thing. I just want to put that point forward.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I don't see any more speakers to the motion. So if we can just have the motion read out to us again, and I believe it's a recorded vote.
So,
and if the clerk can go through that recorded vote or call.
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair, I'll read the motion, but I'll leave it to Tammy to go through the recorded vote because it is challenging with members on both attendee lists and in panelists, but we'll get through. So the motion is that the clerk be requested to obtain a vulnerable sector check for all members of the Brampton Community Safety Advisory Committee.
Right, thank you. Tammy, please proceed with the vote.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Williams?
Yes.
Councillor Fasante?
Yes.
Councillor Paleshi?
Yes.
Councillor Fortini?
Absolutely.
Susie Godfrey? We'll come back.
Sorry, I'll come back. I'm going to unmute her. I think her microphone is.
Okay.
Go ahead, Susie.
Hi, I said yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Thank you.
Yes. Marley?
Yes.
Sandra Solinik?
I'll just unmute her. Go ahead, Sandra.
Yes.
Nikki Cedrone?
Go ahead, Nikki. Go ahead, Nikki. Nikki, we're not hearing you, so you can type in this technical, with this technical issue, you can just type your vote in the chat and send it to all panelists, please. So Tammy, you can go on and then we'll capture if she's voted yes.
Thank you. Shabazz Altef?
Yes.
Gurpreet Bains?
Yes.
David Culp?
Yes.
Andrew DeGroot?
Yes.
Elena Del Greco?
Yes.
Danielle Dowdy?
Go ahead, Danielle.
Yes.
Justin Galhan?
Yes.
Marcia Glasgow?
Yes.
Paul Homerson?
Nope.
Ivan McCree? Vikramjit Ajla,
Yes.
William Vollmer.
Yes.
Peter, have you seen, do you know if Peter Shaw or who was the other individual I didn't recognize
Oh,
for
you have
telephone?
everybody.
I have everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The vote carries.
Thank you, everyone. The vote carries. Okay, moving on to correspondence. There was correspondence from the BIA added to the agenda. To the clerk, do we usually have people speak to that or call on for questioning for correspondence, or is it just received?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's on the committee, so members are probably seeing it for the first time as it was just added to the agenda tonight. So we can scroll through it, and if there's any questions, they can be discussed, and then it can be received if that's the wish of the committee.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to move it, and I just wanted to note that Nikki Cedroni voted in the chat function.
Yes, we have her noted down as yes in the last vote. I do want to, I know Susie is in the meeting. Susie, while we're scrolling, I wonder if you wanted to give us a Coles Notes of what's in the letter.
Okay, can you all hear me first and foremost? Okay, great. Okay, my other phone's going, my apologies. Okay, I just wanted to thank you for adding this to today's agenda under correspondence, and I did want to bring to everyone's attention that we the BIA just recently sent a letter to the mayor and council with regards to some community concerns with regards to safety in our downtown. And I wanted to start by saying it's a delicate issue, and I wanted to acknowledge that there's a lot of great work happening in Brampton, but equally, as a business association, our role is to advocate on behalf of the business owners and landlords. And there has been some issues just of late, specifically at Church and Main Street North, right at the 7-Eleven, that intersection. And so we had a meeting last Thursday with our beautification and safety team. And we had Jason Weisner, who owns Weisner Insurance, at the corner of Church and Main Street North, just on the southeast corner of that intersection, delegate to our committee with regards to some ongoing safety issues that he's experiencing with regards to people or many homeless people hanging out on his property in the wee hours of the night. And this is, from his words, a daily issue. So he'll come to work every morning, and there's bottles, needles, garbage, you name it. There's stuff all over his private property. And he's also witnessed people soliciting drugs, blatantly doing drugs in the daytime, and also sometimes sexual acts. So it is becoming a hot spot. We talked about that earlier. And he has reached out to the BIA to seek some assistance. And this is not the first time we've heard this. So he has been to our safety meetings in the past. And just recently I was speaking to the owner of the Scented Lair last Friday, and she was just driving up the downtown on Main Street North, right in front of 7-Eleven, and witnessed somebody on the long weekend. I think it was like the Monday at 3:00 in the afternoon. 2 people were shooting up in the parking lot in front of 7-Eleven. So I did, the letter that we have written to the mayor and council is really, acknowledging all the work that we are working on to have a better balance of the services that are in the downtown, but there is certainly things that are happening with the business community with respect to property damage, garbage, needles, and just the overall safety. So one of the concerns we discussed last week was Jason's staff feel unsafe coming to work, and that's a real issue. And I wanted to, the letter here is asking for support. We have looked at other cities or downtowns like Oshawa where they have hired security because these things are happening at 2:00 in the morning. So thankfully we don't see a lot of it in the daytime, but the odd time there are some blatant people doing drugs in that area. And you know, we're trying to make this whole city safer, but specifically my roles for the downtown. And so the letter is here.
Thanks,
Okay.
Susie. Sorry, just
Thank
I
you.
know we're after 9 o'clock, and but thank you so much for giving that update. I do want to encourage the subcommittee that has been working to get to know the issues amongst all of in the areas. Maybe the subcommittee could review this letter and can further conversations with you, Susie, as well as a possible next steps for this letter. So I do see Councillor Fortini is going to move the letter, but I do see Councillor Vicente requesting to speak.
I also wanted to speak on that, please.
Oh, you wanted to speak?
Yes,
Okay.
and I'll move it.
All right.
This has been going on. I did a lot of work on those area there on Church Street for many, many years. It's not something new. It's been there for many years. Maybe it might be a little bit worse now. I haven't been around there at the night because I remember to do all the cleaning and the plowing there 15 years ago. I think that the main issue is that 7-Eleven store there. Yeah, and I know down at the Danforth and all where they're open, they started closing or started playing different type of music so they don't hang around. But I remember years ago when I was working there, the police always they're drive through all the time around there, and lately I haven't seen them around no more. So maybe we could also send this to Peel Police and do more of a check around that area. And I'll move it.
Thank you so much. So we're going to, I'll take Councillor Vicente and then Ivan, and then I'm going to stop the questions after that because it's correspondence, and then everybody can refer their questions to Susie afterwards, just in the, just looking at the time. Okay, Councillor Vicente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Susie, for bringing the letter forward. I know that you sent it this week on Wednesday afternoon.
Yesterday.
Yes, and I know that you and I and Councillor Santos had a meeting together with the folks from Weiser Insurance just a few days before to discuss this request. And both Councillor Santos and myself will be bringing that request to next week's Committee of Council. And Councillor Fortini is, of course, correct that this is a problem that has plagued parts of the downtown for quite some time. And I know that you have two very strong representatives with you at the BIA, both Councillor Santos and Councillor Medeiros, who are tireless in working with you and advancing your concerns to the Region of Peel. And, you know, the Region of Peel does a substantial amount of work in the downtown. They're constantly reaching out to people who have special needs, who have addiction and other mental health issues. And it often takes multiple times where the Region of Peel is connecting with people who need help for there to be some impact, or for them to be able to kind of break through and to make that connection and be able to gain their trust and offer them the help that we need. At the Region of Peel, our housing and homelessness work has been seeing great progress, particularly this year, where we were able to secure a more than $1 billion investment in new affordable housing, which will play a huge role in the future in giving us the capacity to help people who are on the streets, who are homeless. And I know that since this April, more than 500 families have been helped in terms of finding new affordable housing for them. But the street problem is something that we are definitely ready to do whatever it takes to help on. We want to be able to find people ways to get off the street and to get the help that they need. And your committee through the BIA has requested for council to consider this, and we will in fact be considering it next week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I did want to add one thing. We will be making a delegation to the region next Thursday. So Rick Evans and myself have both, as well as Jason Weisner. So I meant to mention that at the very beginning. And I do know that everybody is working really hard with this issue, but there's an imbalance. It's not that we don't want those services in the downtown, but when our business owners their staff are afraid to come to work, there's a problem there, and we need to. I appreciate all the comments, Paul, and we've had lots of presentations from the region, but it's still, the daily issues that some of the businesses in this particular area are dealing with. At the end of the day, they're incurring a lot of costs, and you've heard the talk. So I do appreciate the feedback, but the security is a suggestion because that's what we've seen other downtowns do with regards to this, and.
Okay. Thank you so much, Susie.
Okay.
I believe Ivan has a final question. Ivan, do you have a question for Susie in the BIA?
No, not a question, but if I wanted to add a little bit to it, I think the two main hotspot are the 16 John and right beside the 7-Eleven, and I really think that the 16 John it should have security all the time, 24/7. What's happening there? They're inviting people that don't belong into the building, and they hang out, and that's where the problem starts in that area there. The 7-Eleven, I understand that there's a church right next door that they provide food, so they're trying to do a good thing. Unfortunately, they start hanging out there from 7 o'clock in the morning all the way up to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Things that I saw, they're unreal. They go into business, they sit there, they argue with the owner, they refuse to come out. Police is there on a regular basis. I didn't know that actually Councillor Vincent is looking into that, and I appreciate what his effort and all that. But we can't wait. My vehicle was vandalized. I got $5,000 damage from somebody from Peel Regional. Intoxicated. Police was called. They know who it is. Mental health issues and all kinds. You name it, you call it, it's all there. We need to
Absolutely.
stop that.
Thank you. And Councillor Vicente and Councillor Santos are working very hard, are working with them. And based on what Councillor Vicente has said, they're doing the right things in order to see some larger systemic shifts. And larger shifts have to change in order to ensure funding is coming down, in order to ensure programs and services and supports are there, and to help give a different location and option, and for many of the people who are experiencing homelessness and addictions in this area. It's going to take some time, but I know that they are doing the right things to get the ball moving and in motion. So I don't see any more questions and any more speakers. So I believe Councillor Fortini is moving receipt of the correspondence.
Sorry, Madam Chair. William was on to speak. Bill Volmar.
Oh, Bill, sorry I missed you. Do you have a quick comment, question for the correspondence?
Sorry, just a quick one was, I noticed that we do have a lot of security that does cover our city, based right out of the city hall. I know you have contract security and such. Was one. I know they patrol our streets downtown. I know they do a lot of this. I was just wondering, maybe videoing some of these things to be able to bring evidence to the Peel Police. And I'm also wondering about having our city right here in Brampton set up surveillance cameras in our problem areas, well signed, everything. I wonder if that would help. I wonder if it'd be able to have some monitored by our security that record and then dispatch our resources, such as the police or our people that are out there in the public thing to help people, or outreach things to head to those areas to help these people. Like I take part in some of those businesses on Church Street. There's a massage therapy place there. They complain about their porch in the back being used, their back parking lot being used, prostitution, condoms, all this stuff going on. And I'm just wondering if we could maybe support our city hall and our security staff just for the public areas, but also gather the evidence for and help and for our regional services also.
Thank you so much, Bill, for that suggestion. We do have security in the downtown area, but the beautiful thing is that the police station is going to be opening soon, and that is located on George Street, across the street from City Hall. So there is going to be the police presence downtown. Brampton as well, and like I said, these changes, all of the right things are starting to be implemented. So we're going to have to keep being vigilant, and as Rasmin put in the chat, calling 311, 211, and that also helps record any activity and puts it into the record as well. So, great suggestions, and I think if we keep working on this, we're going to start seeing some of the changes that we want to see. I don't see anybody opposing accepting this important piece of correspondence. So that motion carries, and it was a motion moved by Councillor Fortini to um, receive the correspondence. Next, we're going on to portion 9, and that is member question period. Do any members have any questions regarding the business of the Community Safety Advisory Committee? If so, please use the chat function to add your name to the speakers list. I believe Danielle Dowdy was messaging me privately saying she wanted to ask a question. I'm not sure if to the clerk if you did see that comment.
You, Madam Chair, I did not, but I'll unmute Danielle.
Okay.
Danielle.
Thanks. I actually wanted to speak. You had asked me a question and asked me if I wanted to respond about an amendment, but I was muted and I wasn't able to unmute. But that aside, just wanted to ask a question about the presentation that Rasmin did, and wanted to know if she'd be able to elaborate on because she talked about the COVID response through the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. And just wondering if there's been a response that's kind of tailored to the visible minority communities. As we know, COVID disproportionately impacts the Black community and other communities of color. So just wondering if the response has been tailored to those communities and what that looks like.
Hi, thank you for the question. Through the chair. Sorry, there's just an echo. So just in terms of the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan, since the beginning of it, and I think we decided this about a year ago into the development of the plan, we have 3 action tables for this plan specifically. One is family violence, the other is mental health and substance abuse, and then the third was determined to be systemic discrimination. So in terms of the recent events, and I think just in terms of the recent events having some more attention to it, not to say that it was not a reality for many people already. There's been, we were on that path, and I think we just utilized our existing structure to strengthen some of the upcoming action plans. And I'll be happy to share some of those specific action plans for the next meeting. Does that help?
Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing those action plans. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Great. I see no further questions. Now we'll go on to public question period. I will ask the clerk, we have 15-minute limit for all questions and answers. To the clerk, were there any questions submitted during the course of today's meeting?
Madam Chair, there have been no questions.
Okay, great. So guys, we did it before 10 o'clock. We're on to adjournment. I've been really pushing to make it short for you guys. I know there's been a lot of conversation about how long our meetings can get. And so our last item is adjournment. But before I get to adjournment, there are conversations about community safety happening at a council level. And I think it might be helpful for us to entertain another meeting either in the end of October or early November, based on some of the information that comes back to council. So please be aware that I may be calling a meeting in October or early November for us to do further discussion and follow up. Okay, and so can I have a motion moved by somebody? Can somebody who would like to move a motion to adjourn today's meeting? Anybody? Andrew DeGroot. I see in the chat box is it that Rasmeen would advise with support connecting people to services? Is that in regard?
Sorry, through the chair, I think we're just, I was replying to William on the chat, in the chat box.
Okay.
My apologies.
Thank you. No problem. So I have a motion moved by Andrew to adjourn this meeting. If there's anybody opposed to this motion, please indicate. If not, your vote will be in the affirmative. I do not see any objections, so that motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Please have a safe, healthy, and please stay safe, stay healthy, and practice physical distancing and wear a mask or a face covering when inside public spaces. Everyone, have a great night. Thank you so much for your patience. Bye.